In 1099 Common Era, the Crusaders captured Jerusalem and unleashed unimaginable horrors upon the city. One of the participants of the First Crusade, Raymond de Aguilers, states that the massacres at the Masjid al-Aqsa had been so severe that a river of blood was formed, stating, "Our men rode in blood up to their knees and bridle reins. Indeed, it was a just and splendid judgment of God that this place should be filled with the blood of the unbelievers, since it had suffered so long from their blasphemies." What is especially concerning is not just the existence of this river of blood, but the attitude of Raymond. For his remark of it being a quote, "splendid judgment," proves that he had not only held little remorse for the people of Jerusalem, but actually condoned his actions. This then raises a critical question. How did a group of knights develop such intense hatred for a particular group of people? The answer to that question lies in the Crusader propaganda, which systematically dehumanized Muslims. In this video, we will delve into the propaganda that fueled the First Crusade and examine its profound impact on the people of Sham. But before we start, please remember to give this video a like and to leave a comment. This would really help us on the YouTube algorithm. Jazakallahu khairan. First, a little context. Who were the Crusaders? And what are Crusades? The Crusaders were medieval Christian warriors who embarked on a series of religious and military campaigns known as Crusades. These expeditions, primarily occurring between the 11th and 13th centuries, were driven by the desire to capture Jerusalem. When they did capture Jerusalem in 1099 Common Era, they formed the Crusader state known as Outremer, which existed in modern-day Turkey, Syria and Palestine. However, whilst establishing Outremer, the Crusaders committed horrendous massacres, and this was because the Crusader Knights had absolute hatred towards Muslims. Crusader propaganda had a significant role in rallying the Europeans to commit such massacres, and here are some of the examples. The first was the speech provided by Pope Urban II, a man by all accounts had never been to Levant, let alone Jerusalem. His words, which mention vivid description of alleged Christian torture by Muslims, were a powerful tool to invoke emotions and justify the killing of Muslims. For the sake of analysis, we will take a few snippets from his speech. The first goes like this. "They circumcised the Christians, and the blood of the circumcision they either spread upon the altars or pour into the vases of the baptismal font. When they wished to torture people by base death, they punctured their navels, dragging forth the extremity of the intestines, then binding to a stake. Then, with flogging, they lead the victim around until their internal organs gush forth. Then the victim falls prostrate upon the ground." But the propaganda doesn't stop there. It goes on to say, "Others they bind to a post and pierce with arrows. Others they compel to extend their necks, and then, attacking them with a naked sword, attempt to cut through their neck with a single blow, and What shall I say of the abominable rape of the women? In case you've missed it, according to the Pope, the Muslims were forcing the Christians into circumcision and then spread the spilt blood all over the altars in the church. They would then pierce the stomachs of the Christians and pull out their intestines. And his evidence for all of these atrocities? As the saying goes, trust me, bro. In another snippet, he refers to the Muslims as a wicked race, stating, "Let therefore hatred depart from among you, let your quarrels end, let wars cease, and let all decisions and controversies slumber. Enter upon the road to the Holy Sepulchre, wrest that land from the wicked race, and subject it to yourselves." Finally, Urban promises salvation for anyone who takes part, stating, "All who die by the way, whether by land or by sea, or in battle against the pagans, shall have immediate remission of sins. This I grant them through the power of God, with which I am invested." Note the Pope's emphasis on the so-called power he had to speak on behalf of God and decide who can be forgiven and who cannot. Pope Urban's infamous speech would have profound influence on the average European, because the Pope, as the spiritual leader of the Christians, held immense religious authority and moral sway over their beliefs and actions. For many Catholics, the Pope's words were revelation in itself. Therefore, when the Pope is telling the average Christian to go and fight a wicked race that is massacring Christians, and in return they would be receiving salvation, it is little wonder why the Crusaders had been so violent. Another prominent propagandist at the time had been Peter the Hermit, a prominent priest of the era. Peter had claimed that he witnessed atrocities on his journey to Jerusalem. However, the growing consensus is that he had never made this journey. One of his most infamous lies that Christians went on to believe was that Jesus came to him during one of his dreams. Peter had claimed that Jesus had informed him, "Rise, Peter, make haste, and do without fear the tasks which have been entrusted to you, for I shall be with you. It is time that the holy places were purged, and my servants aided." The propaganda had even spread during the initial battles as well. According to one Crusader, during the Battle of Antioch, the Turkish commander Kerbuga had cried out in pain, "By Muhammad, and by all the names of our gods," and his mother. In another account, one Crusader writes that after the Crusaders defeated the Fatimids, one Fatimid emir reportedly said, "O spirits of the gods, who has ever seen or heard such things as these? I swear by Muhammad and by the glory of all the gods that I will never raise another army." In another blatant lie, the Muslims were portrayed as worshipping Apollo. One Crusader claims that the Muslims were so ashamed at the defeats suffered at the hands of the Crusaders that they, quote, "rush off to Apollo in a crypt, rail against him, and hurl abuse at him. O wretched God, why do you cause us such shame? Why did you permit our king to be destroyed?" Robert Reams, another Crusader, goes one step further with his lies, claiming that the Muslims knew of a prophecy in which they would be defeated by the Christians, stating, "The Muslims had said, 'Our forefathers discovered 100 years and more ago through the sacred oracles of the gods, in their casting of lots and their divinations and the entrails of animals, that the Christian race would come upon us and defeat us.' And that this was confirmed by all the Muslims' so-called soothsayers, mages and diviners, and the oracles. Wa'udhu billah. Subhanallah, by these comments, these Crusader knights not only proved their ignorance of Islam, but also proved to be liars. For the most part, however, the propaganda succeeded. In the eyes of the Christians, the Muslims were now subhuman and deserved death. They would earn the derogatory title Saracens. And are referred to as the so-called enemies of God or enemies of Christianity, an accusation that is repeated over and over and over again during the entirety of the Crusades. However, the worst of it wasn't by what the Crusaders said by the tongue, but what their hands committed, which we will now cover in the next part of the video. As a result of the propaganda that we have mentioned, the Crusaders did not hesitate to commit genocide on the Muslim populace, and here are some of the examples. When they captured Antioch in 1098 Common Era, Raymond de Aguilers writes, "The Christians did not take captive any of those whom they found. All the squares of the city were already everywhere full of the corpses of the dead, so that no one could endure it there, for the excessive stench. No one could go along a street of the city except over the bodies of the dead." In other words, the massacres were so vast that you could not walk around in Antioch without seeing a dead body, and as a result, a foul smell had emerged that no one could escape from. More disturbingly, Crusader accounts talk of cannibalism. One account stating, "I shudder to tell that many of our people, harassed by the madness of excessive hunger, cut pieces from the buttocks of the Saracens already dead there, which they cooked, but when it was not yet roasted enough by the fire, they devoured it with savage mouth." And in another account, "While we were resting there at Bara and Mara, our Christian soldiers were so hungry that they ate the decomposing corpses of the Saracens." The genocides continued when the Crusaders took Jerusalem in 1099 Common Era. One account describing the aftermath as the following: "Piles of heads, hands and feet were to be seen in the streets." The massacres were at its worst in the Masjid al-Aqsa. As we mentioned earlier, the killing had been so vast that a river of blood would be formed from the massacred Muslims. Two Christian sources confirm this incident. First, Raymond, who infamously stated, Our massacres were so vast that our men rode in the blood up to their knees and bridle reins. Indeed, it was a just and splendid judgment of God that this place should be filled with the blood of the unbelievers, since it had suffered so long from their blasphemies. The second is found in the Jester. However, according to this version, the river of blood came up to the Crusaders' ankles rather than their knees, with its author stating, "The slaughter was so great that our men waded in blood up to their ankles." Note, all these massacres that we have mentioned are from Christian sources. Allahu Alam, what other massacres took place during the First Crusade? Final thoughts. Propaganda played a significant role during the Crusades, wielding its influence to shape the emotions of the Christians and their perceptions of Muslims. These historical records serve as a testament to the formidable impact of propaganda, especially when it is fueled by prejudices and deliberate lies. By comprehending the past, we can more effectively relate to both the present and the future.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولا تحسبن الله غافلا عما يعمل الظالمون إنما يؤخرهم ليوم تشخص فيه الأبصار.
If you like this video, please give it a like and to leave a comment. While you're at it, you might want to check out some of the other videos that we have on this channel. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.